So, welcome to Modern Mystery Messages, part 5, 6, wherever we're at. I'm not sure. I'm just going to keep it rolling here. Um, Now, I'm out of the church, single mom, in the projects, got the attention of some folks, and wound up getting the attention of a couple of them. And wound up with two more kids. I was a serial monogamist, but still had such poor choices in men that they truthfully were men that I should not have given the time of day off of a wall clock. Now, again, we're all human beings. I'm not mad at none of them. Still got a, peaceful, we done said, did apologies and all of that. And fact of the matter, a couple of my exes I know for a fact watch my content. So I'm definitely don't harbor any animosity, but just when in their moments of lucidity, they'll tell you everything that I'm saying is true. Um, but yeah, I wound up with a single mother of three, and then went on back again, completely unsuitable choice. Well, actually, both of my children's fathers had, in theory, offered marriage or said marriage was on the table, but at the end of the day, the first one didn't mean it, and the second one didn't stay the distance and was doing whatever he was doing. Both of them had other women involved and that kind of thing, blah blah blah. So no, we, without getting super messy, yeah, neither one was marriage material. So took my licks on that, and then along comes baby daddy number three. So I done born into the narcissist and the strict religious structure, handed off to two. I'm not even gonna call them sociopaths because they really, I don't. One was an alcoholic and one was a womanizer and whatever else, and just stuff. They had their own stuff to deal with. That's a whole other issue. But in that energetic bandwidth, if you will, we wound up here we are in fertile myrtle. It don't take much. You don't have to be in a long drawn out relationship to wind up with a baby. And I just, yeah, abortion was not an issue, and I'm grateful that it wasn't an issue because my children truthfully are the best thing that ever happened to me through all of that. I probably wouldn't still be here if it weren't for having had children. And truthfully, one of the things that I asked even when I was still a teenager was I knew I wanted two girls and two boys. But I also wanted to know for sure that when I settled down to marry, it really could be till death do us part with somebody that I was comfortable making that choice with, that I was going to be emotionally and, always compatible. And yes, sexually, I'm not going to sit here. And back then, they act like that was so wrong to want that. No, if I'm going to have vanilla ice cream every day, every meal for the rest of my life, then I need to find out that it's the very best vanilla ice cream that's really a brand that I like. Don't have me no Ben and Jerry's when I wanted whatever. No. So I wound up. Let's see, when my twin boys were two, almost three. I wound up meeting a mutual friend of a coworker of mine, and like I said, he became baby daddy number three. And I hate to say that. Well, no, I'm not even gonna call him a baby daddy because truthfully, the first two were baby daddies for real. Number three, we played house, but I didn't know I ain't had no business. And he actually was raised in a two-parent household, but there were so many of them. There was a lot of parenting that didn't happen. And anyway, I don't know. Whatever that is, he had said to me later that if I had been harsher with him or firmer with him sooner, that he would have been a better man for it. And he knew that. We don't have no, I mean, we still to this day don't have any bad blood, but When I say took me through hell financially and the whole nine, hiding gambling addiction that I didn't know nothing about, keeping me in poverty, the whole nine. I wound up living a completely different type of lifestyle for 20 years that I never imagined myself in because of that. But again, I wanted to know Yahweh and his world. All three of those guys were supposedly good Christians. Everybody, everything that I've ever suffered at the hands, I ain't gonna say suffered, went through at the hands of anybody that was of the uncomfortable span of any of that was done at the hand of Christians. It just was. So rocked out with him for like 6 years and got to where enough was enough, and I had to part company and went through losing everything. I mean, when I say everything, everything at the hands of this man. But then I wound up again later. Sad part is, and here's one of the things that it took a long time for me to forgive myself for, because I wound up taking my children through this stuff as well. They could never understand why I even kept dealing with this man, because at the end of the day, it wasn't even the poverty that bothered them. It was the lying, the inconsistency, the verbal. They didn't witness a lot of verbal abuse because we kept like stuff in the closet, but there was just a lot of off the cuff stuff that happened. Some of it I knew about, some of it I found out about later. Um, just things that I should not have necessarily tolerated. But mind you, I'm a single parent with 3 kids now, and then after I got with him, I wound up with 4. So I wound up tolerating a lot of things that I shouldn't have because I was afraid to be on my own. I tried to call my mother and wanted to go back home. She basically told me, he don't beat you, stick it out, tough it out. And yeah, yeah. So as bad as it was and as inconsistent as it was, he was the only piece of almost support system I had anywhere on the planet. I couldn't call nobody and borrow $20 to get my kids a bag of rice and a bag of chicken, period. Nobody. So even though he wasn't consistent, even though he didn't always do right by me, he did kind of sort of even. Yeah. And here's the thing, and it took me until a few years ago to really understand it and just completely, because he would come back and always do this little half behind attempt and of offering support and friendship and all that, even though I know good and full well I can't marry him at this point. But when you're afraid to be alone and stand on your own, any support system seems better than none at all. Now, truthfully, probably not. If I had just really understood, all right, kiddo, whatever happens, you are in this on your own, figure out another way, it probably would have made me more careful about my choices. But that's a whole, all the probably's and woulda, coulda, shouldas. Can't get back there. I'm just saying where I was at the time, I tolerated a lot more than I should have. It took me through cycles of poverty that I can't say I shouldn't have, because truthfully, I've come to understand everything I've been through and experienced was so that I could have empathy for people who have experienced similar, so that someone could understand if I can get through it, they can too. To be able to give somebody some information, you might not want to do that because I've seen it play out a whole bunch of times and it usually isn't good, that kind of thing. I can't teach what I never experienced. And I didn't understand at the time I was being called to be a teacher. I had no idea. Most of the time, I spent most of my life thinking nobody was really interested in anything I had to say because that's the way it had been. I was identified as smarter than the average pair, shall we say, not genius level IQ, but close. But even still, for all of that, they really wasn't interested. Either I did, well, okay, earlier on, I became so quiet and shy. Yeah, I went through that phase. It was hard for me to speak to anybody once I became an adult, I don't even remember exactly what age it happened, but I finally reached a point where I realized this isn't serving me well, and I became more outspoken. But then people, it's like, oh, I talk too much. They don't have the patience. They don't want to hear it. Most of my family never wanted to hear it unless they could trot me out in public like a show pony to display how well I spoke or how well I spelled or how well I played the piano or how well I whatever, something on display for notoriety. When it come down to everyday talk, nobody's interested in anything I had to say. So I just didn't think any of it was relevant, pretty much. But yeah, so it started getting interesting for me. Well, again, I'm looking back in hindsight now, but several things that I wanted to, and I'm gonna jump a little bit ahead and then back because I realize now when I was looking at overall like planetary, I'll say that for later now because that's just too much. But I was there for the birth of MTV, 1981. That was huge on this planet. People don't even understand the larger scope of what that really was. Like when they never lied, and that was a perfect video. Kill the Radio Star was the video that launched YouTube on August 1st of 1981. Never was a more fitting song chosen because that was the beginning of a really serious hardcore shift in the programming and infiltration of the agendas on this planet. Like for real, for real. Like I said, we'll talk more about it later. I'm gonna have to go back through and take notes of some of the things we need to expound on here. But that was an important date in history. And then in 1999, some important things happened for me. One, I saw the movie The Matrix. And y'all, if you still in 2025 have never seen the Matrix franchise, it behooves you to look at it. That is one of the most important pieces of film that's ever been made since they've been doing cinematography. I promise you. Trust me. Under Luciferian law, they have to tell you the truth, even if they hide it in plain sight. And that's what they've been doing in movie and media for decades. But The Matrix was pivotal because it was showing the need and the ability to break the paradigm and escape the Matrix. That's not a lie. That's something that people have been trying to figure out for the longest. It ties into the significance of the whole 2012 thing and the star seeds coming onto the planet and all of that. Yeah, it's pivotal, that information. And everything in there isn't to be taken literally, but there, trust me, you need to see and understand that movie. First time I saw it, it was on VHS, and it hit me so hard that when the closing credits were scrolling, I had to rewind it and watch it again, and rewind it and watch it again. And yeah, it shifted something in me enough for I didn't understand that it was waking me up in the Matrix at the time, but it did. And in around 2000, between 1999 and 2000, that's when I began to notice the shift in the programming on even mainstream television, and I unplugged from it. Like, yeah, I noticed very heavily. That was the year that they kind of shifted from, like, all of the networks all of a sudden had a paranormal agenda. Everybody was slaying vampires and killing demons and all of that, and the horror movies and all of that. Jason and Freddy and It and the Thing, and it was like a glut of it onto the planet. And then came the reality TV shows. And I know that's all they pretty much are. Well, I don't know what they got on there now, but every time I see or hear about anything, there's so many of them on there now. It's ridiculous. But what people don't understand is the advent of the reality TV shows was the beginning of the mainstream reprogramming of the masses. I'm going to cut that one here because we definitely need to talk about it. I'll catch you on the next one. Love you. Bye.